What's up, folks? It is Quentin here, and I'm hanging out in a weird setting here so I can kind of prowl around when I, when I do this. Yeah, I don't know. It seemed nice to me, so that's what I'm doing. But the actual content here is going to be the content of the video is going to be a borrowed idea from Mr. Matthew at Mr. Mayberry Book Club guy. He is doing a video over yonder where I think it's just favorite novels of the 20th century. And I think that's great. I love these types of videos, especially because they tell not just what someone thinks is objectively good. I am always very skeptical of what people think is objectively good. But I think it's really interesting to hear readers' enthusiasms from a personal level and then see what they personally resonate with. Oh, excuse me. But yeah, so I'm just gonna kind of go on about my favorites, why I like them, very brief reasons, but it's a nice reason to just round up everything. I'm also gonna have a little short story corner where I choose two short story collections from the 20th century that really stand out to me. So yeah, I suppose we'll get started with just two of them, get them off the list of stuff that I really like, but that I've talked about elsewhere. I'm talking about one, Tarye Vsauce. Speaking about personal reasons for liking a book, The Ice Palace is an ultra personal book for me. It's a lot of what I like stylistically. I really like hardcore minimalism and hardcore maximalism. But this, and I also really like stylistic games, form changes, but also a really good emotional core to a book. And that is exactly what this is. Lots of very subtle form changes, very good characters in this book. It's about grief, two young kids, and one of them is getting over a loss, named Sis and Un. It's about community, and it's about how you get your community, how you sort of are okay after that loss, what it means to lean on people, the nobility of grief, and also the unproductive, I don't want to say wallowing in grief, but something along those lines. That's what's in Tarye Vsauce. It's a very good book, a very picturesque book, with a lot of great images. Sorry, it's chaos here. You hear sirens. But Ice Palace, yeah, great book. You're gonna like it, I swear. If you don't like it, I don't like you. I'm just kidding, I'm sure you're fine. The next one I don't have here is William Gaddis's The Recognitions. It is just a sprawling novel that's mentioned. I like hardcore minimalism and hardcore maximalism. That is pretty maximalist. Everything you could possibly like about a novel. The highway is this way. I should point my middle fingers this way. Yeah, so it's everything I like about a novel. I like good characters, I like good plot, I like good arcs, I like really consistent attention to theme, not just doing things because it's a cool plot, but justifying things. I like good satire. That's exactly what this is. It's perfect satire. And I like I like multiple storylines that all kind of knot together and go their own ways. And it's actually a novel that's, despite all of the storylines, they knot together, but it all really ends up really clean at the end. It's a very clean book. It's something that I can tell Gaddis is deliberating over every single plot shift, and it's something you can just get lost in when you read it. Also, the stylistic changes are really nice. There are collage sections that I just adore. There are also these amazing artist parties that read a lot like T.S. Eliot. If you like T.S. Eliot, you want T.S. Eliot in prose, definitely check this thing out. But also, if you like people like Jonathan Swift, you like the big satirists, you like black humorists in American postmodernism, maybe you will like Gaddis's Recognitions. I've still yet to read JR, but hopefully soon. That one, I can't get over the lack of prose in it, because I'm like, Gaddis is really good with dialogue, but oh boy, is he ever good with prose. It makes me really sad that he stopped with so much extensive prose like he does in the Recognitions, because I do think it's the best prose I've ever read. I would stand by that, I think. So yeah, Gaddis's Recognitions. Don't have a copy here. That's back home. I'm at school right now. But definitely check it out. It's cool. It's really insightful. It makes you think about American culture in a couple different ways. Yeah, it's published in the mid-50s, so it's good. This is more towards the 60s or 70s, I think. I don't really remember. The next one, going on Gaddis, parallel, not series. People thought that Thomas Pynchon was William Gaddis. Now, Quentin, why are you holding up Inherent Vice? That's not from the 20th century. I actually thought of that, guys. Thanks a lot for telling me. But I'm talking about Gravity's Rainbow in particular. I know Mason and Dixon came out a little bit before I was born, and I do really like Mason and Dixon. I also really like V. I think if I was ranking Pynchon's novels, just out of my personal enjoyment, I would probably say Gravity's Rainbow, V, Mason and Dixon. Crying Lot 49 would be at the bottom. I have yet to reread that, so maybe that's why. But I do like Gravity's Rainbow a lot. Sorry, get back on track, Quentin. Stop rambling, bruh. I like Gravity's Rainbow a lot because of the voice primarily. I like all the different narrative games that Pynchon is playing. I love all the intellectual fun that you can have with it while still the book reads casually at times. It reads very funny. It reads, and I love his sort of sense of play. He has a really, really twisted and irreverent sense of play throughout the book that I find just absolutely enthralling. And talk about a book you can get lost in. The recognitions you can get lost in, but it's always a type of loss that you actually can find your way out. Gravity's Rainbow, it's like it's such a tangle that you can't eventually you just have to shut off that thing of like, okay, I need to make more connections and more connections and more connections, because you're not going to find them sometimes. And I love that. I love shutting that part of my brain off when I'm reading. I can't do that a ton, but it is very nice. I also like the characters a lot. I like them in the same way that I like some Charles Dickens characters, where the Charles Dickens characters can read incredibly cartoonish. The names, of course, Katya Borgesius, which is lovely. Actually, one of my profs and we were at the Finnegan's Wake reading group, we were talking about Pynchon names, and his favorite was Hugh Bongo Shaftesbury, and my favorite is, of course, Mike Fallopian, or Dr. Diocletian Blob, which I love how, but it's, no, there's a lot of good names in Pynchon. Those are always like a nice little bit of fun when they come in. There's also hilarious jokes. Pynchon will spend pages laying the groundwork for some stupid pun. For DeMille, young fur henchman can't be rowing. There you go. So yeah, that's the pun. 40 million Frenchmen can't be wrong. It's incredibly stupid at times, which I really like. I like that Pynchon's kind of letting his hair down, so to speak, you know? But then also, there's such a great attention to historical accuracy in a lot of spots. There's such a great attention to form in the book. He's really delighting in his craft, in his research, and in his voice, which I really appreciate. I appreciate all of this. It is a great romp, a great sense of play, and it's really both reads of it that I've done. I've read some sections like 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, but it's a really relevant book for today too. The analysis that Pynchon's writing about did not go anywhere. And it's if you like Gravity's Rainbow, definitely check out Against the Day, because that's the sort of ground zero for a lot of what is going on in Gravity's Rainbow. Where Gravity's Rainbow, he's assessing the modern American condition. Mason and Dixon Mason and Dixon are all going to look at the ground zero, where that all started, the bedrock, that everything is being, all this kingdom of death that Pynchon sees America as is being built upon, right? It also helps to read V, because I feel like Pynchon's novels in some sense are like dominoes, that are ones that I've read so far at least, where V sets up this this concern with the inanimate and also fascism that Gravity's Rainbow takes up, and then there are some chapters in Mason and Dixon that incorporate both of these things. So yeah, his books are very much responding to, they're building a larger train of thought that is more fragmentary, but you could see the connections running through them. That's really cool, and I love that about it personally. The next one is Virginia Woolf's novel, The Waves. This is my favorite novel from Virginia Woolf. I still haven't read Orlando. I have it right over there. Why haven't I read it? Because I'm an idiot, guys. Because I'm an idiot. I just love her writing. This I read with a buddy of mine and poor first year, but I don't think the first year finished it, so it's what it is. I'm pretty sure my buddy finished it, but I just got sucked in around Christmas time. Could not stop. It's basically just a book of monologues. I love that it's very fun. There's a lot of interesting frames, way to look at your life. The identity that Woolf constructs here for herself is really interesting. It is, it's basically like, and I've said this in a previous video, but I'm gonna repeat it because it sounds pretty damn cool. So it's basically like Woolf has the book open, comme ça, and she grabs a little idol of her identity and she just hits it with a hammer over it, and all the pieces fall where they are, and then the book becomes this interesting sort of mosaic of Woolf's identity. It's like that, yeah, but also waves. Their identities are very fluid. I wasn't finished through the book, I don't think, when I recorded that. Or maybe it was a different version that I recorded after I finished. I don't know. I think it was a different one after I finished, actually. But yeah, the identity in here is very wavy, very water-like. The sense of what a person is simultaneously male, simultaneously female, and the voice is able to just sort of swim between these different things all the time. The conversations in here are really interesting. You could tell that each voice is its own thing. It's its own interpretation of the scene, of the events, of everything like that. But simultaneously, it is narration, and the language that it uses is oftentimes not the language that the voice would actually be using in the scene. There are scenes at the beginning where I think people who are like around like 12-ish, 10-ish years old are using words like sluice, like the rain sluiced down. I don't know. They're using $5 words when they're supposedly kids though. And that obviously, it's like, for me, it's like if you took an interaction between people and translated it into Wolfenese. I don't know. It's a language that Woolf kind of has all to herself. The prose style of this book is extremely good. The characters are all complex. The plot, who cares about the plot? But it's just about 6 people growing up. That's all. And then there's the Percival character who croaks halfway through. Spoiler alert, he croaks halfway through. And yeah, it's just a sort of reckoning with what England is, the industrial England, post-colonial England, all that stuff that I find really interesting. So you have historical insights combining with personal insights. That's a bit of a theme on this list, yeah? But all these things are just immensely enjoyable, and I can't help but go and reread different things. I would suggest when you read this, keep track of 1 or 2 characters and really fully explore those characters, and you will get an interesting angle into the book. That's what a book like this, you need a good angle going in that you can track and sort of see what it yields. My favorite 2 characters to watch were Ginny and Bernard. And Ginny's always associated with light. Bernard is associated with storytelling, with a bunch of different things. He's also I don't know, he gets better as he goes along, but he begins as quite an egomaniac. Not an egomaniac, but you know, he's definitely, his ego's there. But anyways, the waves, I don't want to get into literary analysis stuff, but that's primarily what I enjoy this for. I love just thinking about everything. Woolf is just, the amount of like good food for thought that she's served up with this book is fantastic. And then there's also like, just the way it reads, like, come on, how do you not like this? Like, I like stream of consciousness, but I like my stream of consciousness on acid, like this. Not so much like this, but this Mrs. Dalloway is also fantastic, although it's just much more refined and normal. Actually, no, it's not more refined. Woolf is always very refined, but it's much more, it's much less unkempt than the waves. I'll say that, and Mrs. Dalloway, and To the Lighthouse, which I also love. But okay, that's where we're at. And I suppose since I'm talking about modernists, I should mention this one. Bang! Ulysses. This is the Cambridge Centenary edition. Super expensive, but luckily at the Wake Reading Group, someone's copy was damaged, i.e. it was just ripped when it came in the mail. So they got a free one and gave this to me for a fruit explosion muffin from Tim Hortons. Oh no, and I've just ripped another part off. That's okay. I don't give a damn. Okay. Yeah, so the Ulysses, it's good. It's a bit of an alienating read. I think there's something about Joyce's unwillingness to tell these like longer stories, these like, oh, let's sit by the fire and tell the story, stuff that happens in William T. Vollmann's last stories and other stories. That's but you know, despite that, it creates a book that's much more about relating to people person to person than about narrative. And Joyce does a lot with narrative, but not in that storytelling sense. There's something about the actual storytelling of Ulysses that, again, I'm finding alienating. But all the thinking that it serves up is just super cool. I'm a very intellectually engaged reader. I like to play around with the conceptual structures that a book has, and Ulysses is just like crack to that type of thing. It's a bottomless. It's very much a bottomless book. There are so many angles of thought that you can use, and this edition particularly has every chapter an author they write like a little thing beforehand, and I have a prof who wrote the chapter before the Eumeus section, and he celebrates Eumeus because it can sustain such bad writing for so long, and that is an actual feat, believe it or not. But yeah, it's one thing that I'm going to be getting onto this list about is I really appreciate amateur writing, and not because it's bad, but because writers are trying to express things and they're using these unconventional structures a lot of the time to do it. It's a lot of amateur writing happens before a writer has been corrupted by good style. And Ulysses has a lot of really naive and innocent style choices that Joyce is able to like. He's just insane enough to try them, and then he's also a good enough writer that he can really craft them into something. I like how he breaks all his own rules in that book. Every style has a specific rule that is sort of implied. The example I used was Ithaca, the way it's the catechism. It should be a figure of ultimate knowledge, and then the catechist, the answers say something happens inexplicably, i.e. the narrator just doesn't know, and the knowledge, the narrator's lens is not actually this objective knowledge thing. It's really cool. It happens in a lot of chapters there. So yeah, that's one of them also, and we're talking next about amateurish style choices, innocent style choices, naive style choices. These are all words that can apply to Richard Brautigan. This is the Edna Webster collection of undiscovered writing because it is the literal juvenilia, and it's a fantastic book. I think it's just not going to be for everybody. The books I would actually pick for this, they're also right there on my shelf. That's why I'm pointing over there. I'm not just being extra for no reason. The actual book I would pick would probably be An Unfortunate Woman, So the Wind Won't Blow It All Away, In Watermelon Sugar, something like that. I really enjoy his reflective side and the way there's this really tender authorial consciousness that is like exploring these issues, and all the ways that while he's exploring these issues, all his novels structurally are like ad hoc arrangements. They're like William Carlos Williams poems, where the structures are all just made on the fly. And I really, really like that. I find it very thrilling. I love to see alternative structures being used for books. And on top of that, the sentiment is just unmatched, I find, in Richard Brautigan. And emotionally, I just connect with it very much. So yeah, my passion for amateur writing has sort of started with Brautigan. And yeah. This is another one that I'd say actually is my passion for amateur writing helps me with this. I would say this is obviously not a fair pick, The Adventures and Misadventures of McCroll, because this here book is actually An Unfortunate Woman was written in the 1900s. I think it might have been published after, I don't know. But anyways, this is a series of 7 novellas, but a good book, and they're all novellas, so why not call it a novel, right? There's a recurring character, McCroll the Gaviero. Macrol the Gaviero. He sounds more Italian, but whatever. He is a lookout, and I think this is a book that inspects the human condition. Big, vague term that no one knows what it means, but it inspects the human condition. It's an existential novel, and it is really interesting with all the form changes that come. Some of them are more boring than others, but I do think that Alvaro Mutis's talent for finding striking images, using striking metaphors, interesting structural conceits for a book, something like The Tramp Steamer's Last Port of Call. There's such a note of fatalism and determinism to this book that you tend to always know what's going to happen in these stories. Not always, but you tend to know what's going to happen. And when it happens, you're still heartbroken by it. It's great. Like The Tramp Steamer's Last Port of Call, it's all structured around these like little sites of this tramp steamer, which it is someone, I think it's Abdul Bashir. His sister is in love with a man, and he prophesies that your love will only last so long as this tramp steamer does. And there are all these descriptions of this tramp steamer. There's a love story, the description of the tramp steamer, a love story, description of a tramp steamer. And as it goes along, it is, the tramp steamer is breaking down. It's heart-wrenching. It's just heart-wrenching. There's also like some really funny spots in these books, which I always appreciate. Ilona Comes with the Rain has a passage where a man goes to a brothel and refuses to leave because he's never known that life could be like this, and he just kind of goes insane in Central America, in Panama. It's really funny. It's kind of I don't know. It's just really charming, and then the structural weirdness of this just happens everywhere. Every book is structured in a really strange way where there's not really a conventional plot structure. each novel is a kind of reflection. My favorites in here, definitely Ilona Comes with the Rain, definitely Tramp Steamer's Last Port of Call, Amir Bar, and probably Abdul Bashir's Dreamer of Ships. But I have to do the next one. Characters can be strong, not always, but it's mostly, again, the insights this thing generates and the imagery that it generates, and the naive sort of style choices that I like a lot. So that's all in Alvaro Mutis, The Adventures and Misadventures of Macrel. So there we go. And then my time for the short story corner, because I want to end this before 25 minutes. These two are really interesting. They are just fantastic. Obviously, Hemingway's In Our Time. I love this freaking book. I love thinking about the sequencing of it so much. Reading it over and over again yields a lot of different insights for me. Big Two-Hearted River, one of the best short stories I've read. Especially, you kind of do need to read the whole collection to see why it means so much. Because the Hemingway, his sequencing will really do a lot of work in the collection. I love the chapters, especially like there seems to be nothing happening, but if you look at them really closely, you'll see that they pull out a minor theme from the work that comes before, or they prefigured a minor or major theme in one that comes next. So there's a couple in there that are all about like precision. They all came over just like that, and it's this sort of it's this really interesting. Well, anyways, each story is a beat in a much larger train of thought that Hemingway is using. In one of his, I believe it's in a letter, he talks about zooming out and zooming in and zooming out and zooming in. The stories he's zooming in, the chapters he's zooming out. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I'm doing a really bad job of selling this, but Hemingway In Our Time, it helped me in particular, being at school, trying to sort of assess what's going on with the people around me. It has a lot to say about the man, which I interpret to be just the adult, really. Nick Adams, his need for all these really romantic displays of, romantic and fake displays of affection, the way he's projecting in a certain way, and also his failed attempts at friendship in certain chapters, or certain stories, like the 3-Day Blow, I find really nice. And one of my favorite stories on this read that I just did this year was freaking Cross Country Snow. Like, what an amazing counterpoint to the 3-Day Blow. Like, it's all the little tiny foils that Hemingway sets up in here just make me think a lot, and I want to just return to it because it's just so good. They make me feel really good, these stories. But again, alienating writing, just like Joyce. You could actually see that those early chapters in Ulysses are a huge influence on Ernest Hemingway. Anywho, 23 minutes. We gotta go. We gotta rumble. Ricky Ducarnet, The Complete Butcher's Tales. I love these. The sensibility of these is really nice. She has a very funny, morbid, disturbing sense of humor in these. She loves the grotesque a lot. Her thinking is very good from story to story. Each story is a train of thought, a beat in a larger train of thought, which I always appreciate. And she really can make just about any conceit work, it seems. It's just really nice to see. She's a lot to say about language, about a lot of thoughts around feminism that are interesting to explore. One of my favorite stories in here called Fedor's Bears, which is a man who likes bears so much that they have a kind of control, and he studies bears. He exerts control over bears for a living, but they control him. They get in his mind and they mind control him. It's really ridiculous, really morbid, really grotesque, but they're really good. And some of her flashes in here are the types of things that, oh my God, they just live in your brain so much. The final line of a flash like like the star room, and a hunger something rises around the land. It's just so interesting, whether her stories are 15, 20 pages or whether they're 15, 20 words. They're fantastic. You really do check this out. It's a great read, and it helped me creatively. It helped me realize what it was I was trying to do in a lot of my own fiction. So Ricky Ducarnet, she's great. I can't wait to read more of her stuff, to be honest, especially her poetry and her more of her short stories, although I don't know if she has short stories. I know she does novellas. Maybe I'll read those. But yeah, that's what's up with me. Those are my favorite novels, and then 2 favorite short story collections of the 20th century. Cowabunga. It's nice, right? Let me know what your favorite novels are. I really am genuinely interested in that in the comments. Do tell me, because I don't know. I'd love to hear, and if I've not read them too, great to field some recommendations like that, right? Anyways, I'm yapping. Peace and groovy.